try and protect their own unbeaten home record. Right, into the weekend analysis then. Let's start with a significant London derby. Jamie, Chelsea going really well under Rosenior. West Ham desperate for the victory, and how well they started the game.
They were fantastic and carried on the great form that they've been in. Again, we highlighted last week that 4-2-4, exactly the same again. We see this front four from West Ham here, right up against that back four of Chelsea. So a 4-2-4 away at Stamford Bridge against one of the top teams in the country. So there's real courage there from Nuno and his staff. But the game, certainly in this first half, was won by West Ham 2-0 because they won duels on this side. Hato and Garnacho could not cope with Wan-Bissaka and Jarrod Bowen in this position. But Jarrod Bowen gets the goal, but the other three attackers in the box again, something we highlighted a lot last week. Always getting numbers in there. Again, it comes from this area again for Chelsea, this left side. Long ball over the head of the left-back, Hato here. Garnacho doesn't match the run. Far too easy for Bowen to bring the ball down. Doesn't match the run, as I said. And again, the four attacking players in the box, and Somerville, who's been on absolute fire of late, scores a great goal. So 2-0 and fully deserved at half-time.
So change is necessary, Jamie, and one had been enforced, hadn't it? But how did Chelsea find their way back?
But I think before we get to the change, what we want to get to is how Chelsea set up in the first half and how Chelsea have set up since, you know, the manager came in. So 3-2-5 in possession. So you see the back three, midfield pivot and a front five. Now, this is nothing different than Maresca did. We see Michael Carrick do it yesterday for Manchester United. Lots of teams build up like this now. But what's really interesting is actually the positions of the fullbacks in this setup. So you've got Gusto at right back, who's part of the back three in the build-up, and you've got your left back, Hato, who comes and joins Caicedo as one of the double pivots in that position. So it's really important that we notice the positions the fullbacks take up when we get to the second half. But as we've highlighted with Rosenior's Chelsea, they always look to go through the middle. So as this ball now comes to Gusto on that side, and we just need to highlight actually the wide players there, Gittins and Garnacho. So the ball comes central to Caicedo. They lose it there. This is 30 seconds into the game. Something that we saw a lot against Brentford. This happened throughout the first half against West Ham. And the reason we're showing that because we want to get to what happened in the second half, basically.
So they're already forced into the one change that I was mentioning, that Jamie Gittins got that injury on this side. So make him the first one, if you like, with Pedro Neto. So then Rosenior gets them in and he decides he needs to overhaul things. And he makes 3 changes in personnel. So should we activate those as well,
yes.
Jamie? Badiashile, Hato and Garnacho, the players to go off. He brings on Fofana, he brings on Cucurella and João Pedro further forward as well. So he's made those personnel changes. They're all sitting round.
Yeah.
He's got his board up. How's he going to change things?
But the first thing I want to get to, Rosenior said after the game, this wasn't about tactics. This was about grit, desire, energy. I'm sure all those things played a part, but he's underselling himself. He made a real difference at half-time. 1 sub's already gone off, and then you still make 3. You've only got 1 sub to make in the second half. But how does he change it? We've highlighted the 3-2-5, very offensive. 5 players up on the last line of the opposition. So what does he do? So a big thing and reason why we highlighted the wide players in Garnacho and Gittins providing the width is that what he does is he puts the full-backs as his wingers. So Gusto and Cucurella go really high. He brings on João Pedro almost in a number 10 position. And he has, where's Neto? Neto is in that position. And what he does is he drops Fernandez next to Caicedo and he goes with a 2-2-6. So that's him being more offensive. It's not just changing bold. Like for like, it's very bold. But he needs to get another attacking player onto the pitch. And that's how he went about it. So yes, I'm sure there was great energy, great atmosphere in the stadium, but a lot of it was down to the manager. Very courageous in how he went about it. So we're going to look at it now in terms of all the 3 goals. So that was what he would have said to the players at half-time, in possession as well. So we're going to then look at what happens on the first goal and highlight exactly what I've just mentioned. So you've got the 2-2-6 in possession for Chelsea, 2 centre-backs, 2 holding midfield players. There's your front 6, and then you've got your full-backs in those high, wide positions. So as you see, Cucurella. So in the first half, that's Garnacho. We've got Gusto here in the first half. That was Jamie Gittins. So completely different. And then you overload in the central area. So this leads us to as I said, the first goal for Chelsea. But what's really important is to think about West Ham's setup. West Ham are 4-4-2. So when you have so your two strikers here for West Ham can play up against two centre-backs. And it's difficult for centre-backs to step in because there's two players just blocking them. So even though they're playing with a 2, at times you still have to make it a 3. Because when you build up with a 3, as we've mentioned, a lot of teams do, the wide players on the outside can step in with the ball and take out two strikers. So you see what Caicedo does here, really clever. He drops into the middle of the two centre-backs to make it a back 3, which means Fofana can come into this space, take this striker out the game. He runs in here. Great delivery from one of the subs and a great finish from another sub in João Pedro. So that is the system working well. So Kilman now comes in to make it a back 5 because the back 4 is trying to deal with a front 6. Very difficult. So we've got the same setup again. Your back 2, midfield 2. But who are your wide players? There, Cucurella and Gusto on the far side. Look at the numbers here in the box. Again, that front 6. We get back to the two defenders here again. Cucurella now makes a run in here, but look, he switches with Neto, but they've still got these numbers in the box. He cuts inside, far post. Who wins the header? Gusto, your fullback, your winger, your fullback and your winger, if you like, scores the goal. So what we've got now is a game of 2-2, and this, I can highlight exactly the same things, high numbers on the last line. But this, for me, is also about Enzo Fernandez, who gets the winning goal. A lot is spoken about in the Premier League now about the top midfield players. And we speak about his midfield partner, Caicedo and Rice, who's the best out of the two of them. But there's no doubt two of the best midfield players in the Premier League. But he is right up there with the best players in the Premier League. He is one of the best box crashers we see in the Premier League. Permanently getting on the end of things. There's talk, is he a hold midfield player, which is what we were told when he originally came in. I don't see that. He's a number 8 or a number 10, getting into the box and getting goals. And as I said, he is one of the top midfield players in this Premier League. And a lot of criticism has come at Chelsea for the money that they've spent. But when they've spent big in the centre of the park, it's paid off.
Huge investment, 8 goals that he scored, and his open play XG is top in the Premier League as well for midfield players. XG per shot, he's expected to score with 20% of the shots that he has on average, and is making those runs into final third. And the most runs is a cross option. That's what we're talking about, the box crasher he gets in there to try and get on the end of things. And this is what his shot map actually looks like. So the larger the circle, the higher the XG, the more chance he has of scoring. So you like to see the smaller circles outside. The closer you get to goal, the circles get bigger. And the white ones are the goals themselves, where he has crashed into the box. And you can see he's done it really between the posts, Jamie. Do you think that's significant as well, the positions that he gets himself in?
Yes, because when you think about goal scoring, we talk about players getting in the 6-yard box. You don't normally see midfield players do that. But you look at the goals he's got there, fantastic. But a lot of midfield players scored in what we would call the second 6-yard box, round about the penalty spot, very identical to what we saw, as I said, at the weekend against West Ham. And this area is what you'd associate with midfield players. So he's fantastic at it, one of the best around.
Starting to look a bit like Dominic Calvert-Lewin's, actually.
Yes.
In what's been a real difficult time for them. So, yeah, I think Chelsea, United, Liverpool, Villa, right now.
What did you feel walking away from Chelsea last night about Chelsea over the course of that crazy 90 minutes?
I mean, I watched Chelsea, and honestly, I can look at them. They look like an under-10s team when they play for parts of matches, and then all of a sudden they can turn into what looks like a real good football side. You know, that's got a real energy about them and some good quality players. You'd have to say Liam Rosenior will look back upon it, and he made the 7 changes, which I'm not going to criticise him for, because I actually think that can be deemed as brave. I hear a lot of managers talking about, I trust my squad, but they play the same team near on every single week. They don't trust the squad. Actually, to change your players when he's had the sort of run of games that he's had is in some ways, he's admirable. He said to those players, I want you to go out there. He said to Gittins, he said to Delap, he said to Garnacho, he said to Hato at left back, Badia Shield, get out there, go and play. I trust in you. Go and play. But too many changes. It's too many changes. I remember the most difficult games I had for United were near the end of my career. A couple of games whereby the manager would leave. He used to make 5 and 6, 7 changes regularly from sort of Wednesday to Saturday, because he did trust his squad genuinely. But when he made 7 sometimes in an awkward game, West Ham having prepared for a week in better form, you can get caught out with that lack of sort of familiarity with the other players. and it almost feels like you're part of the reserve team all coming in at once. Rather, if you make 3 or 4 and you've got that stability around you of the players who've been playing, you feel like you're cuddled by that sort of what would be consistency that's existed before. So I think he'll learn from that, Liam Rosenior, and maybe making those types of changes again. And in the first half, I have to say that West Ham were absolutely fantastic. They dominated the game, even though they didn't dominate possession. They dominated the game. They had the best chances. They were more physical, and that left side of Chelsea was obliterated. And look, Alejandro Garnacho is a player that sort of divides opinion, I think, at times. A lot of people are questioning, is he top class, or is he, where is he in the pecking order? What was difficult to watch last night was a young player like that who's gone to Chelsea. He looked shot to pieces in terms of his confidence on that left-hand side. And I'm not just talking about when Wan-Bissaka kept going off him running forward, but actually when he got the ball, his first touch was back, and then he just kept going back, then he kept giving it away, and it was an awkward, very horrible experience for both Hato and Garnacho on that left side, and Badiashile. But once he changed it, the complete and utter transformation of the game occurred. Actually, didn't occur straight away. I thought for 5 minutes of the second half, West Ham were really good. But then when Chelsea got a goal, they're a young side. It's part of their development, but you shouldn't always need a goal to swing the momentum of a game. Obviously, it really helps, but you should be able to change the momentum of a game if you're a top side without that. And again, just a simplification of the football, getting it forward, putting it into the box, getting bodies in there, doing simple things, and going 4-4-2, which is what I've seen in the last couple of weeks by a few teams. And all of a sudden, Chelsea looked a completely different side. So it's what Chelsea we see. I mean, they've won in Napoli. They've come back from 2-0 down against West Ham. They've demonstrated that they've got the quality to win in difficult places or come back in games where they look beaten. So that's a real good thing for them. But they're not the real deal, but they should be in the top 5. They should be in the top 5. And it wouldn't surprise me, and Villa fans are not going to like me for this, if you actually, Liverpool, United and Chelsea all ended up in the top 5. It wouldn't surprise me if they got hunted down, Villa. But not that I want them to, because I actually think that it's good for the Premier League that Villa have emerged and got in there, and they've got a really good manager. So a lot to play for.
To Sunday supplement, let's talk. It was a quiet night at Stamford Bridge, wasn't it? Bottle of the Bridge is the headline on the back of the Mail on Sunday. Riath, you were there witnessing it all. Wild would be an understatement. Chelsea booed off at half-time, cheered to the rafters at full-time. Does that 90 minutes, or probably 115 minutes by the end, wasn't it? Does that sum Chelsea up just now?
Yeah, look, if ever a game didn't need a 20-man brawl to liven it up, right? It was, it does sum up Chelsea. It's that variance between being utterly abysmal and chaotic and suddenly very functional. Now, somewhere within that tapestry is Liam Rosenior, and we've been talking through the morning about, do you praise a man for cleaning up his own mess? And that goes to the heart of it. This is the guy who sent out a starting 11 that was capable of being that poor in the first half. They really were dreadful, by the way. There's no simple way to understate that. And you go to that left-hand side with Garnacho and Hato just getting... Wan-Bissaka pretty much ridiculed them with everything he did. I blame Garnacho for a lot of it. I thought he left Hato very, very exposed. Wan-Bissaka pulled them to pieces. It was a brilliant first half. But then this Rosenior touch at half-time, we saw it in Napoli as well. I think you've got to credit a manager who knows how to change a match while it's in progress. He did it away in Napoli, and his substitutions yesterday completely turned this game. He has made a good start. It's 6 wins in 7, all competitions. I'd make the argument, Napoli away aside and losing to Arsenal in the first leg of the League Cup, it has been a gentle introduction. Starts with a game against Charlton. None of it's been configured as a walk into a burning building, has it? But so we're still waiting to see what happens there. But I've been impressed. I think he's handled it well, and he turned that one around yesterday. It's a young squad. They will have ups and downs. We saw that under Maresca, but there was a little bit more coherence to what they were doing, certainly in the second half yesterday.
Martin, I want to quote Riath's piece. If success at Chelsea is contingent on how well you react to chaos and ineptitude, then credit to Liam Rosenior for passing one of those early tests of sanity that visit all coaches at Stamford Bridge eventually. Not only did he retrieve 3 points from a hideous spot on a febrile, thrilling evening, he made another against those who once thought he was not fit for the workplace. So is this a case of genius changes at half-time from Liam Rosenior, or how about getting the team right in the first place?
It's beautifully written. I would want to say that first of all. It's absolutely beautifully written.
But what comes next?
But if the chaos and ineptitude is of your own making, sorting it out. There's a line in the Simpsons, Homer Simpson. He proposed a toast to alcohol. He says the cause of and solution to all of life's problems, and that was Rosenior in many ways yesterday, because the solution that after half time was to pick the team that just about every Chelsea fan, certainly the two that I was sitting on the sofa with, were screaming out for before the game was even started. Why isn't Cucurella in the team? Why isn't João Pedro in the team? Why isn't Fofana in the team? This was all being said before. I absolutely take everything that Riath says in that, because, it's very impressive, when a manager goes, right, well, I've messed this up. But he did mess it up. When he calls him over, when Gittins go down injured and everyone comes over and they have this sort of ad hoc sort of team talk, on the touchline, you can lip read him saying, this isn't working. And you're like, yeah, you're right, mate, this isn't working. I don't know. You look at Chelsea sometimes and there are obvious solutions to Chelsea. There's a really good team at Chelsea. I think I watched them win the Club World Cup in the summer. It wasn't a Mickey Mouse tournament. It was deserved. They've beaten Barcelona. They've beaten Napoli. They've beaten Liverpool this season. All the teams that everyone said, oh, they weren't at the Club World Cup. It's not a proper competition. They've beaten them this season. So there's a good team there. Play it.
But the reason presumably why Cucurella, Fofana, Neto, Pedro aren't starting is Arsenal on Tuesday. Exactly. He wanted to rotate. He got it. He made his decision. It looked like a pretty bad decision, but you can understand the decision. Where you have to give him some credit is he made that mess and he fixed it.
And he fixed it, yeah. I'll give him credit for that, but it's a mess of his making.
But in fairness to him, he's only been there 3.5 weeks and he's played 7 games. They've barely had chance to train, let alone implement his own tactical philosophy, and they want to press differently under him. But he says all we've had time for is meetings. We haven't really had time to train. So in terms of why didn't start Cucurella yesterday, it's not because he doesn't rate Cucurella and he brought him on at half-time going, oh, he's actually quite a good player. It is literally that, isn't it? And they talked about coming back from Naples, and they talked about, obviously, Tuesday night, trying to overcome a deficit. It's not like they have a 3-0 lead against Arsenal. So, I mean, that's why. But equally, you're absolutely right in terms of that's 2 games in a row where they've had to change things at half-time. I'd personally just cut him some slack because of that. It's been so new, so different. The scrutiny is absolutely immense. I mean, he's won, 5 in a row and 6 out of 7. So I think let's just give him credit for that and, and see how they go from here.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very hard game if we're scoring too many points off the guy who won.
No, I'm not scoring any points off him. I'm just looking at that. If they'd have kept the team on that started that game, West Ham beat them 5-0.
Yeah, and if West Ham actually took the chances they had, they still win that game.
Yeah, so it's just it wasn't a team. It wasn't a team that works, and I couldn't understand it from the start. Yeah. So it's great. I mean, look, what they did in the second half, fantastic. But amazingly, put your best players in the team and you win matches.
Martin, Alison Rudd in the Sunday Times kind of compares Rosenior to a bygone age in the Premier League when the likes of Jose Mourinho was in the Premier League. She says Liam Rosenior is as far removed from Mourinho as you could get. He is humble, earnest and serious. In no way at all could you label the club's new head coach a maverick or a loose cannon. He knows what's expected of him. Referring back to a piece you wrote a few weeks ago when Enzo Maresca departed Chelsea, you were saying that there are two ways a Chelsea manager can lose his job. Number one, do badly and you're sacked. Number two, you do well, but you want a little bit more power and then you're sacked.
Yeah.
Do you think Liam Rosenior can balance that and fall in between those two stools to keep his job on a long-term basis?
Well, you'd hope so, but you've got to be a politician at Chelsea. It's you know, and a lot of clubs, not just at Chelsea, a lot of clubs now, you've got to be a politician. Thomas Frank, you know, and the situation around Tottenham, so much of it is to do with the politics of the club, that you're getting rid of Daniel Levy, the sort of the image, the new, the people who are driving the club now at board level, the Lewis family, the image that they want to project to the fans. You know, Thomas Frank said his last press conference, I think he was asked, is the squad weaker after this January transfer window? And he said yes. You know, and he was honest. And then he said, oh, but we tried to get Semenyo, and we... But you're thinking, yeah, that won't go down well. That won't go down well, saying the club. Because all of these clubs are really political now. And I think that's a problem at Chelsea. Rosenior's done smashing. In terms of his results, the last couple, though, I just don't think it's sustainable to pick one team, get to half-time, and go, right, OK, we've got the wrong team here, right, we'll pick this team, and then win the game. You know, you're lucky you're playing West Ham, because if you go 2-0 down to Arsenal like that, you ain't coming back.
Jackie, Sam Wallace from the Sunday Telegraph was at Stamford Bridge as well. He talks about West Ham very briefly in his piece. He says West Ham were direct and they had a clear plan. They are clearly fighting for Nuno Espirito Santo. Some might say a little bit too much, given what happened at the end of that game, as Riath alluded to before. It was a pretty gut-wrenching night for them in the end, given how they started. Go on,
That's the funniest thing. The bit where João Pedro pushes Traore, and then Traore turns round and comes at him, and he looks like the Incredible Hulk. And you sort of see Pedro's face is like, oh, right, I've done it here, I'm in trouble here. And, you know, and then it turns out to be someone else gets sent off. Sorry.
No, that's all right.
On you go. But that bit is funny.
Yeah, they are fighting for him.
Yeah.
Jackie, have you seen enough now from West Ham United, not only in that game but in the previous two games where they got 6 points, to suggest that they can pull it off and stay up?
I think it's a major concern. And watching that game last night, when I saw Max Kilman waiting to come on, nothing against Max Kilman, but it hasn't worked out. The move has not worked out for him. And West Ham fans are up in arms about the, £40 million they paid for him. But when he came on, I just thought, if they concede in the next couple of minutes, they'll all blame him. And they did concede in the next couple of minutes, and they did go on to lose. So West Ham fans, I mean, I think it's more a case of, look at the bigger picture. They haven't had a clean sheet for 22 games since they won against Nuno's Nottingham Forest. If you can't keep a clean sheet, you're really going to struggle to win games in the Premier League. And I think a lot of that is down to personnel as well. But I know the fans are upset because it's not the first time that Nuno's taken off a forward player in Pablo last night and putting on an extra defender. But then if he doesn't do that with a 2-0 lead, they'll say, why didn't he shore up the defence? And I just watched that interview afterwards with Nuno and Johnny Phillips, and those two had a lot of sparring fun at Wolves over the years. And Nuno looked like a shell-shocked kind of man, you know. He doesn't give effusive answers at the best of times, but he really, really looked shell-shocked by that. And I think they're in banging trouble, obviously. They really, really are. I just don't think they have enough, and especially defensively.
It was difficult for them. The defence is the massive thing now. I haven't seen if the stats have altered this over the weekend, but worst defensive record in the top 5 European leagues or whatever. But last night, my sympathy for Nuno is everything still could have changed. We could be having a completely different discussion about the substitutions and everything else if Todibo is able to hit the target from 3 yards.
Absolutely.
They should have been 3-0 up.
Yeah,
They should have been.
but even at 2-2,
Yeah, 3-2. The Todibo.
it's still.
Right,
It's,
and there was another chance at 3-0.
Yeah, there was another one.
that game was still actually there to be won, and there's some things, I know we all like a discussion about a manager, but there's some stuff where you can't really pin it on the manager, and that's missing from 3 yards in front of the post.
When he took over, I can remember writing in the column, I can't see how he can get West Ham out of this, because the squad is so weak that whatever you want to do, you haven't got the tools to do it. If you want to go, all right, we'll press high. Well, you haven't got the legs to press high. Low block or whatever. Well, the defence isn't good enough to play with a low block. There wasn't anyone there scoring goals, and you just look at this and think, well, you've got no way of playing. We'll play on the counter attack. We need legs to play on the counter attack. Now they're introducing that, but it's late in the day. It's really late in the day. So if they win that yesterday, because Leeds have got beat, you've got Nottingham Forest and Crystal Palace are playing each other this week. I think. Is it Leeds and Nottingham Forest? I think might play next weekend. So there's a little run, little sequence. If West Ham could have held on to that yesterday, where you go, right, okay, give it a couple of weeks, everyone cuts at each other's throats, and you could see a way out. But as Jackie says, if you can't keep a clean sheet, then how can you ever defend? It's not like you can ever defend a 2-0 lead. You've got to keep going forward. You've got to keep going forward. Because you can't
come in during the season as well. And when he had that great success at Wolves, if you remember, they were in the Championship and they went off to the Alps behind closed doors. None of the journalists were allowed in to see anything. And that's when he got Conor Cody, a midfielder, plumped him in the middle of a back three. And the rest is history. He signed fabulous players as a result of him having his right-hand man, George Mendes. He was George Mendes' first ever client. They're supremely close. And he basically did the recruitment for him. So he built a team from scratch there and was phenomenally successful with that 3-5-2 formation. And he had things just the way he wanted them. He doesn't have those tools at West Ham going in during the course of the season.
I asked this question to the panel last week and I got 3 different answers.
Still a hell of a thing to rely on if you're West Ham.
There's usually one team that gets dragged down with the kind of weight of something or other going wrong, and the Palace meltdown at the moment is potentially one of them.
Martin, you agree?
Wolves, Burnley, West Ham, because I just can't see who will get sucked into it, because the gap, that 5-point gap, is substantial at this. West Ham have got no wriggle room. They can't afford Nottingham Forest to get a last-minute goal somewhere, or someone else to Leeds to nick a point somewhere. They can't afford it. They've got to have everyone doomed all the time for them to climb out of it, and it doesn't happen like that.
And anyone that saw that 3-0 defeat at Wolves, if anybody saw that first half, I mean, I don't think West Ham fans it was beyond shocking.
It was.
The lack of backbone, the lack of... amongst the players, by the way.
Yeah.
The lack of backbone amongst the players to be 3-0 down at a side that... It's still their only win in the Premier League all season. And it was an anticlimax for Wolves, because it was like, well, this is a bit easy. That's how bad West Ham
And it's the quickest... It's the only game they've won all season, and it's the quickest any team have got to 3-0. This season, to a 3-goal lead. That's the quickest it's happened.
Traore's a variable there. I think he's going to let them play a slightly different way, and he will scare people.
Yeah.
For a variety of reasons.
João Pedro.
He terrified
He certainly
him.
scared João Pedro.
Questioning
yesterday.
every decision he'd made in his life up to that moment.
I think, João Pedro's face, I haven't seen anything like that since Marvin hit Alan Minter the first time, and you sort of, but yes, sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. No, I love it. West Ham still in the bottom 3 and Chelsea up into 4th. Time for another quick break now. And when we come back, we'll be seeing how the Sunday papers are covering Liverpool.
I don't know. Are they? Yeah. Okay, so if a top 4 finish is good for Liverpool, I don't know. What does Shashwat say when it comes to Chelsea? What is a good season for the Blues?
First of all, I'm going to be very mindful and careful about the words that I speak about the manager right now. because of Mr. Rosenior is in the attendance. But yes,
he's not just in attendance here. He was also in attendance at a certain game at the weekend, wasn't he? You know,
I was,
maybe
yeah.
we have to be careful about wherever we speak these days, Shashwat.
Yes, definitely. But jokes apart, yes, there he is. What a wonderful game to be a part of. But yeah, I feel that a successful season would be, again, a top 4 finish, a Champions League place finish. I'm expecting us to be in at least the quarterfinals, depending upon what the draw we get in Champions League. But to be fair to Liam, I think he's done a tremendous job so far. The one game that he lost was against Arsenal, and I think it was too early in his tenure. I'm quite hopeful about the second leg tomorrow. But yeah, the turnaround against West Ham in this game, as we see the images on screen, was absolutely magnificent. I absolutely did not think that we can make that comeback, but the mentality that the team has shown in the 2 games running, first against Napoli to go behind and to come back, and then against West Ham, again on the weekend, it was tremendous. And absolute scenes when Enzo Fernandez got that winner. So I'm quite happy, and I really like watching Liam's press conferences, to be honest. Like, he's very articulate. He knows what he's talking about. Yeah. Seems like a really nice guy.
That's what you could stop there. You could stop there. I think that's enough compliments inadvertently to his dad here. Okay, you can stop. His head's big enough at the moment.
But you said everything there about Liam that I'm not, in all honesty, Shashwat. But what do you like about I know you said about them coming back. Is anything changed from your point of view from the Maresca to Liam being in charge?
I feel certain changes. Both, I guess, a lot of positives are there. Firstly, the players don't look rattled, because usually we see when there is a managerial change, no matter which manager comes in, it is very difficult for the players to adapt. So Liam has done a really good job in that regard, that he's won the players' trust and he's won the players over. Players are responding to his tactical instructions. I still believe that there are some frailties when we talk about a defensive setup, but that is not down to the manager. It's just the timing of his arrival, because he still needs some time to work with these players. Hardly has gotten any training sessions because the games are coming thick and fast. I think Chelsea play 8 games in February alone. So it is going to be very difficult, but he is finding his feet really soon, and it is a very crucial time in the season. And I think it's a near perfect start. I can't be greedy and say that the first leg against Arsenal we could have ended with a draw. He has surpassed my expectations. He's won 6 games out of 7. And the main thing is that the players are showing mentality under him, which is really good to see.
Yeah, and I think it's a start he needed, in all honesty, because he's a young coach. A lot of people say, he's coming from Strasbourg, where Chelsea have had massive names with great experiences. It's a start that he really needed. I thought the performance against Napoli was a big one, because against Conte, but the atmosphere at Stamford Bridge, if you can imagine, there were people having a go at me at half-time while I was sat there. They were patting me on, saying, this ain't very good, this isn't very good. And then second half, it changed and it finished brilliantly. And I think it was a performance at Stamford Bridge that he needed, not only just for the supporters, but for the players as well.
Yes, definitely. If you have these sort of performances, and as I've mentioned, the Napoli game as well, the nature of response when you go down is very important. The performances were quite spirited, but we have to also look at the factors why we found ourselves in that position. I think it is not down to the manager; it is down to the largely quality of the squad. I feel we have got really good 13 or 14 players, but as soon as we start to feel our second team, per se, and make a lot of changes, those players either have not settled into the Premier League level or are simply not good enough, or will take time to come to that level. Because if you look at a simple change, like when Jorel Hato plays in place of Cucurella, maybe Cucurella might be out of form recently, but he changed the game completely. It's night and day. It's not even a joke. Like the difference in quality is like, if the player who starts as a 10, you need at least a 7 or 8 out of 10 kind of a player to replace them. Are they at that level? I don't think so. So it's not down to the manager or the tactical points. I think it's more down to the quality of the players that we have recruited, and that's a big question mark, and that stems from the hierarchy, I believe.
Yeah, definitely a show of resilience. Very quickly, your prediction for tomorrow, the second leg in that semi-final at the Emirates?
We win the second leg 2-1. The game goes to penalties, and big Robert Sanchez wins us the game.
What a story!
go.
Shaswat, you should get into movie writing there. That was very descriptive. Thank you very much for joining us. Take care, Shaswat. So we've got to talk about another team that's on the up. Manchester United. It's 3 out of